Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host, where today we are talking UFC 309. We've got Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. And this event I will be attending at MSG this Saturday. Really excited about it. Some great fights, some great betting opportunity as well. And if you want to become a client, link down in the description. This year, we're sitting at 71 units of profit with a 19% ROI. We've been dominating. We've had, here and there you miss and you hit, but we've definitely been dominating overall this year and want to keep that going. Have a 5% play up right now for this weekend. I'm 12-1 on those this year, and those graded plays I always feel very strong about. Love the spot that we have now. I've got 3 plays locked in for clients. We'll have more as we lead up to fight night. So with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. Now, we've got a big line here. We've got Jon Jones minus 700. The comeback here on Stipe plus 450, 440. Now, looking at this fight here, we know we're getting with Jon Jones, or I'm pretty sure we know we're getting with Jon Jones. This guy, world beater here, GOAT of the division, GOAT of MMA, according to Dana White. All these things are going on. You got Stipe, he's the former heavyweight champion, all these things, great boxer, power, all those things. Now, first, when you look at this fight, because there's a lot of things that we can talk about here, but the first thing we look at this fight is the stylistically. And honestly, as this line does indicate here, I think Jon Jones has him covered everywhere. I think Jon Jones really has him covered everywhere when you're looking at it. I do think that the main path for him in this fight is going to be wrestling. And I really do believe that that is going to be where he's going to look to go. I don't see Jon Jones, standing in the middle of the pocket, slinging, throwing it, looking for that big knockout moment. I think he's going to go the path of least resistance. And yes, Stipe can wrestle. There are some wrestling opportunities for him, but in general here, this is really where he's going to look to nullify the power of Stipe, look for those takedowns, and look for the opportunity to really control the action. Now, you see what he did against Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane, high-level kickboxer. No, he does not have the power, but high-level kickboxer overall, does have ability, and Jon didn't even want to mess with it. He didn't even want to stand and throw and do any of those things out the gate. He dove at legs. He looked for takedowns. Within the first 2 minutes, he was able to secure 2 takedowns and find that submission finish in that first round. So I don't think it goes that quick, but I do think that that's where he's going to go. He's going to sell out, I think, for takedowns. Probably early on, I think it's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process, but I do think he's going to look for those takedowns. Now, the other side of it here is the fact that, Jon on the feet, we know what we're getting there. Great distance management, incredible distance management throughout his career, good footwork. He can mix up his combinations, good front kick, a lot of things that he does do that's going to, I think, be very difficult for Stipe to kind of get inside, throw those big shots. Jon's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. That's going to help him as well, too, kind of working at range. And that's the thing with Stipe. Stipe has the opportunity to land that big shot, but the other side of this is, and I'm sure you're hearing it on all types of podcasts this week, is the fact that, Stipe's been out. His last fight was back in 2021 against Francis Ngannou, where he was knocked out brutally. Not the best look for him overall. Hasn't been in the cage. Was it 3 years, 7 months, something like that? Really been a while when you're looking at it overall. And ring rust, we know that's obviously going to be part of this. Absolutely. I don't care, what anybody says. Ring rust is real. Talking to enough fighters, they all agree with it. It's timing. It's all those things that go into this. And when you're looking at it on the other side here is that he's 42, so he's been out for a substantial amount of time. He's 42 years old. You got Jon 37, 5-year age gap, not the best for Stipe, when you're looking at that. But where I'm going with this play here is to get off the big number on Jones. I do believe that this fight is going to be a spot where Jones needs to find a finish. I think this is something he can absolutely not go to a decision. I think this makes him look bad. We already know what's going on with Tom Aspinall, and he wants to fight him and all those things. But if he just goes out there and, pitter-patter shots for 5 rounds and wins a pretty, one-sided decision, I think that does negative things for him, and really the narrative that's going on out there about him and about, Aspinall and whatever else. That's a whole nother conversation. But I do think he needs to get that finish. I think he's going to push for it. And I do believe it comes within the first 2 rounds. And you're looking at the number here, minus 700 for Jones. Jones getting the job done inside the first 3 rounds is sitting around minus 140, minus 145. I like that price. That price just kind of came in a little bit. I like that price. I think it's a good spot. And I do believe he gets the job done within the first 3 rounds. So I'm thinking John Jones, minus 140 to get the job done within the first 3 rounds. Now, the next one here we're going to be talking about is going to be Marcin Tybura, minus 140 against Jonata Diniz, plus 120. Now, you've got Tybura here, UFC veteran, a grinder. On the other side, you've got Jonata Diniz, undefeated Brazilian prospect as he continues to move up there, and a glory kickboxer. Now, the thing here that I do, you hear glory kick, or at least people do. They hear glory kickbox and they start thinking Alex Pereira. They start thinking, Israel Adesanya and another guy transitioning over and, undefeated record and these kinds of things, do I think, at a point, kind of make people start to question, hey, is this guy, is he going to kind of do what Adesanya has done or Pereira has done? And going back and watching tape, I think in the kickboxing side of things, I think that he looked pretty good. I don't think he looked fantastic. I don't think he's touted as this high level kickboxer. I just don't see it. I think that he does some things that are pretty good. I think his hand speed is decent. I think his footwork's all right. He's got a nice leg kick. He can go out there and throw some low kicks and chop away and those kinds of things. But in general, I have a problem with the fact that now he's facing, and I actually liked, for those who were, been watching, I actually liked Derek Lewis to go out there and beat Tybura in the last fight. I'm not Tybura, to beat Diniz in the last fight. I thought that the power was going to be there. I thought he could even look for takedowns. Now Diniz has, I believe, a worse matchup when you're looking at it. His biggest red flag on the Diniz side is going to be his wrestling, his grappling on his back. Those are going to be the things that I think that he is going to struggle with, and he has shown to struggle. And you look at kind of his last few fights, against Austin Lane. Austin Lane is terrible. And, he goes out there and sells out for a takedown early in the first round, gets it, and gets nearly the entire round of control time. Now, Lane doesn't have any ability for submissions. He's not that kind of guy. He just he's not equipped with that on the ground. And, but even with that being said, he still banked an entire round for Diniz against Diniz in that spot. And then the second round, he literally was tired from exhaustion, had no energy left, and ends up basically getting knocked out from exhaustion. So not the best look. And then even the fight, his most recent fight against Carl Williams, which is another little conspiracy part where the UFC telling, or at least from Carl Williams, UFC telling Williams don't go for takedowns, don't do those things. You're going to have to, stand, strike, those, whatever. And he ends up doing it in the third round. He ends up going out there looking for takedowns. He secured 3 takedowns in that fight. And not only that, but he was landing standing. He was landing and landing some nice 1-2s on Diniz. And this is a guy who's a wrestler in Williams. And I think that was some red flags there where you're seeing him get hit by a guy that really doesn't know how to strike and only is a wrestler. And he goes out there and yes, Diniz wins, but it's another spot where it just didn't look good overall. And then you also look at that is, the problem with him is that he can't get off his back. If he's taken down by Tybura, that's what he's going to be doing. He's going to be laying on his back. And that is exactly Tybura's game. Tybura's game is to go out there, look for takedowns, look to grind it out, smother you, push up against the fence, seek takedowns, keep you there, dirty box, and just rinse and repeat over and over throughout the fight if he can do that. Now, obviously, he's getting older and he didn't look good in the last fight, and there are those things there. But when you're looking at the opportunity for him to get top control, I think if he gets Diniz down one time, that's the round. That's going to be the round. I don't, Diniz is not going to get up from that. I don't expect Tybura to dive off when it comes to cardio and all of a sudden he can't, keep pushing like some of his past opponents for Diniz. I do think he can find that. And that's the part here that I do think is just bad, is that he can't get up off the ground. That's going to fit for Tybura. Also, even on the striking side of things, Diniz leaves his head in the center line. He's extremely hittable. And I'm not saying that Tybura is some high-level striker, but it leaves opportunities for him. So in this spot here, I like Marcin Tybura. I think the grinding path is there, the smothering path is there, and Denise did look like his cardio was ticking down big time once he started wrestling, once he had to start grappling a little bit more against Carl Williams, and you saw he definitely was ticking down a little bit against Lane. So in this spot here, I do like Marcin Tybura. I think he gets the job done. Minus 140, I actually think is not a bad price. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is going to be Eric Anders, minus 115 against Chris Weidman, minus 105. Now, this one here, the line opened up at minus 205 for Anders, and money has consistently come in on Weidman, and I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I don't. Now, with that being said, his last fight for Weidman, when he fought Bruno Silva, I was there. I was in Atlantic City. I was literally front row in Atlantic City. And we bet Weidman in that spot, but he was plus 200. Now, that obviously is not the case here. You're talking about he's now pick 'em to, as this is trending, it's probably going to all of a sudden flip, and you're going to see Weidman probably as a favorite in this spot, but money's consistently coming in on him. And again, in that spot there against Bruno Silva, I thought he looked bad. I thought he looked bad. And the thing that helped him was these eye pokes. I mean, I'm in the front row, like, fucking eye poke this guy. They aren't calling anything against Weidman, on his home turf. They just kind of let things go. Weidman just kept doing what he wanted to do. Eye poke punching, ended up getting the victory there. And I was happy to cash that ticket that night. But I also looked, because I was watching this thing front row live. I'm like, Weidman looks slow. He looks frail. Doesn't look that good overall. Now we even see with Bruno Silva. I mean, it's another loss for this guy. I think Silva's like 1-6 out of his last 7 or something. I mean, not good showing overall. And Weidman had a tough fight with him in general. I mean, whatever the scorecards say, they say, but this was a tough fight for him. If you take away some of those eye pokes, not the best showing. Now, all of my stock at this point for Weidman, I've sold. I'm selling it. This is a spot here where I'm watching the line, and I'm seeing that Eric Anders is starting to, get closer and closer to some plus money. And you guys know I love that plus money. So this is a spot where I think age is catching up with Weidman. I think injuries are catching up with Weidman. He's had, surgeries on his legs, just consistent issue after issue. And you almost see it when you see him fight. It's almost like, is this guy just going to collapse? I mean, even during that fight with Silva, I thought he did not look good. And even now you kind of see this is a fight that's going to be at MSG. You've got a former champion in Chris Weidman, and he's in the middle of the prelims. He's not even like, the featured fight into the pay-per-view. This is, I mean, they're kind of tucking him down a little bit. I think that they know this is the end for him in this spot here. Now, I get it. There could be a little bit of shiesty judging, but that kind of shit's going on all over the place. So you can't fully go into that. But, I do think this is a spot where it's going to be, a shell of who we know Chris Weidman to be. And stylistically, I think Anders can do some work. I think he brings more to the table. I think he brings a little bit more action. I think the physicality, could be there as well. Looking to push forward, bully him a little bit. I think the more dangerous guy right now is probably Eric Anders. And, I just think Weidman is going to be a guy who's going to do a little bit of touch and go and look for some wrestling. And I think Weidman, I think he's a guy that can be hurt. I think if there's big moments in this spot, it's probably Weidman getting hurt, and that could give a round to Anders, or Anders looking for the finish. I don't think Weidman has what it takes at this point to find that finish at this particular point. Could be some sloppy moments. I am pretty sure of that as well. But when you're looking at it here, I think that Anders has the ability to get the shots, land the big shots, have the bigger moments. And in this spot here, I like Eric Anders. Now, we're going to see where this line goes and if it continues to go. I mean, I've stayed away from actually betting it so far because I'm watching this line. But I like Anders at this point, at this particular point. I think I may be pulling the trigger on Anders at minus 115. I think the line is good. But again, as this continues to go, with him being the home man in Weidman, you're probably going to see him take even more money leading up to fight night. So I'm going I'm going Eric Anders minus 115. Now, the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Mickey Gall versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Now, this is a spot where you got two guys both grapplers and both have negative striking differentials. Not the greatest things, but they both do have it, so I guess it's all right. But this is a spot where there is just multiple red flags on the Brahimaj side, and you're getting, I think, a pretty good price on Mickey Gall at around that minus, 135, 130 range, I think is a pretty good price. Now, the first thing here is that Brahimaj in his last fight against Thimba Garimbo. Now, we bet Thimba in that spot because we figured he could kind of just wet blanket him, lay on him, control him a little bit. And that's pretty much what Thimba did throughout that fight. He was 5 for 6 on takedowns. And I think that's, really where it can open up opportunities here for Mickey Gall in this spot. You had Thimba, who was controlling in the clinch, controlling on the ground. He was even landing shots standing a little bit. I mean, it was just, I thought, a really bad performance overall for Brahimaj. When you're looking at it, the control time was there. You even had Thimba had 10 minutes of control time, really wide overall. And that is, partially fact that I think that, the cardio for Brahimaj is not that good. He's another guy that can go out there and look explosive, but will really start to tick down. And even in that fight against Thimba, he was 3 for 6 on significant strikes. Not the greatest showing for Brahimaj overall, but I do think that, Gall is going to bring a lot more. And I think he's definitely the better wrestler between these two. And he may sell out for it. This is another spot where I think Gall may look for takedowns or may look to start to work. And I think the first round, he may look to work his striking. I do like what I've seen out of the striking from Gall. I think he continues to get better. And even in losses, I thought that he was looking better overall because this guy pretty much grew up in the UFC. So he's been facing tough guys throughout his career, although he's a middle of the pack kind of fighter, maybe a little bit lower. He's fought some tough guys, Mike Mallet, and he's definitely fought some tough guys that kind of really counter some of the great things or the good things that Gall does. And I also think that he's going to have that submission threat. We know that Brahimaj does too, but I like what Gall can do, kind of mixing it up. Going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. And I do think he can have the more impactful strikes if they're going to be standing and striking. And that can be a possibility for him to go out there and do that. Now, if Gall just works at range, I think he could even find success there too. I think Brahimaj, again, his cardio really, really is not very good. And I think that that's where something that Gall can capitalize on. And also Brahimaj is a really a first round or bust kind of guy. 10 pro victories, 9 of them in the first round by submission. The 10th one was in the second round by submission. But this is a guy who gonna look to push forward, and he just throughout his career has had terrible cardio. And I almost think that he kind of knows it, that he's got to go for it in the early on in the fight. If it doesn't go his way, okay, so be it. And he loses. He's 0-4 to the decision because I think he's a bad minute winner, which again plays into something that I do think that Gall's going to work the jab, work the combinations, mix in some takedowns. And the slower that Brahimaj gets, I think that Mickey Gall has more opportunity to go out there and get the victory. So in this spot here, I do like Mickey Gall minus 132. So there you have it for my plays for UFC 309. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, we got a 5% play, 12-1 over this year on those plays, as well as we're up 71 units this year. We've got 4 events left, and we're going to finish strong, and I'm excited to see this all live. So we'll do this again next week. Let's cash.